Gentrification is when more prosperous people move into a neighborhood which has previously experienced some kind of decline, which can be defined in lots of ways, and which has a population of less prosperous people.
One of the easier ways to think about gentrification, a very simple definition, is one group in, one group out. And if we think about land, it's usually the poorer group is the out group, the richer group is the in group.
Typically in Chicago, the way it works is poorer, not so safe neighborhoods start seeing predominantly like Caucasian art students move into their neighborhoods.
So in addition to rich group in, poor group out, it's oftentimes rich and white group in, poor and people of color group out.
It like gradually leads to a safer space.
One of the reasons that I'm glad that I live here is that the street lights on my old block were all completely out, so it was actually the darkest street that I'd ever seen in a city at night.
It's more buying versus and less renting, and kind of pushing out families and predominantly people of color from those communities.
Development is often viewed as this good thing. It's taking something and developing it, making it more useful, more accessible, more attractive.
Chicago has gone through a series of phases in its history. The third city is the place that we're familiar with since about the 1990s, in which the population has once again become more diverse, and to have younger people in particular who are attracted by neighborhoods which 30 or 40 years ago middle-class people didn't want to live in, or not many middle-class people wanted to live in.
There is less of a distribution of like stores and things like that. It's like a lot more residential patches.
When something is developed, there could be a group of folks that have a community there who are now being pushed out in the name of development.
Today, there's much less of a preference for that kind of lifestyle and that kind of community to live in. You often have quite a bit of displacement of these longer-standing, less prosperous people by the newcomers who are coming in.
It's only a plan for the space. It's very rarely a plan for the people.
At this point, many city planners wouldn't say that they're necessarily advocates of gentrification, but a lot of city policy and a lot of city planning activity is really directed at trying to upgrade neighborhoods that have gone through some sort of process of decline.
When we talk about the relationship between gentrification and urban planning, a lot of times in urban planning, when the plans are written in 20, 40, 60-year windows, in many cases, it doesn't account for who is in that particular community.
But I mean, it's a tricky issue, because if you live in a neighborhood like that and you're a renter, or you've lived in the neighborhood for a long time and you're not real prosperous, on the one hand, the grocery is a good thing. On the other hand, if you have quite a bit of that kind of investment, you may begin to fear that rents are going to go up, property is going to flip from rental to home ownership or condominium, and you might be pushed out of the neighborhood.
People moving in the communities actually had community meetings versus kind of just making decisions without community members, long-standing community members being involved. I think also just people moving into Pilsen and recognizing, like, yes, maybe you're not Latino, but you can still belong here and say hi to people, and like even just like saying hello, like building community in that way, instead of just really feeling like making yourself isolated. I think that's another way to make gentrification, or just the process of kind of diversifying a neighborhood, much better.
If you live in a neighborhood where you don't have access to decent shopping of various types, but particularly grocery stores, well, isn't it a good thing for Walmart to come in? Or isn't it a good thing for, one of the supermarket chains?
I think that bettering and beautifying communities so that everyone can benefit is a great thing. And if that means that schools are going to be better and there's going to be better resources for families, fantastic.
Right, so I don't think about positive gentrification. I often think about, because that's not necessarily sustainable development, and it often interrupts community life. So I think that's really, I think it's important to kind of think about that framing of what would it mean to have a sustainable community that doesn't necessarily have a bunch of rich folks, but folks who are there who now have opportunities to actually make sure that their communities can thrive moving forward.